This morning on BRN Sunday, the effects of 401k vesting schedules. Joining me now to discuss this and a lot more, Professor Samantha Prince is with Penn State University. Professor Prince, so great to see you. Thanks for joining us on the program this morning.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, a great research paper. We're going to talk about the effects of 401k vesting schedules this morning. This is based on a paper and a lot of research that you and several others did. Let's talk in basics in terms of the vesting schedule. Vesting schedules exist, and when people leave a company, if they're not fully vested, meaning they didn't work the proper amount of time, they forfeit monies. And based on the research, there's a lot of money, Professor, that's been forfeited.
That's exactly right. And so I think it's important when we're looking at this from the perspective of the fact that this forfeiting occurs whether the individual ceased employment on their own volition, voluntarily, or if they were fired or, involuntarily departed the position. So, I mean, one person can say, well, you knew what you were doing, you forfeited or whatever, it's because you left, it's on you. But this is not always a voluntary departure that triggers this.
Yeah, and so when someone leaves a company and they don't have enough vesting, what happens in the back end in the record keeping system is those monies go back into a forfeiture account and can be used to offset company contributions. And we were talking offline, we've actually done shows about that, and there's some litigation that's going on around that. But is there enough transparency and knowledge about these vesting schedules for people? Because we were talking before, there's a summary plan description which describes the plan. It probably would include some of that information, but I think, I don't know if it's completely transparent to workers.
So I think transparency is a big issue. Companies are not always forthright about their vesting schedules so that people can make those decisions that they need to make with regard to if they are planning on leaving, and what if they're going to vest in a few weeks? Well, maybe that would change how they're going to look at their departure date, right? So I think there's definitely the need for more transparency to aid people with their decision making, at least with respect to the voluntary departures from employment at certain places.
Yeah, and in terms of the vesting schedule, I can remember back in the days of the EGTRA, and that actually, I think, put more rules and constraints around vesting. I'm really dating myself, Professor. Now, this is back to 2001. There were some significant changes, but there were changes where you could no longer have, going forward, a 5-year cliff vesting. You could still have a 3-year cliff vesting, and you had to get at least 20% vesting, I think, after year 2. So you could have up to a 6-year graded vesting. Has that helped to eliminate what we're talking about this morning, which is people leaving and then giving up monies? So by accelerating the vesting, has that helped at all?
I mean, I would say it probably helped some, but I think with as transient as people tend to be in the workforce, it's not helping enough, and we need to definitely go further. And I actually call for the elimination of vesting schedules completely because of the number of people who are impacted and giving up their retirement money. I mean, when people they apply for a job and they go to work there, they say, one of the considerations is probably for most people, there's a retirement plan, there's a 401k plan,
Sure.
and here's what the match is. And, they figure in the math, like I'm getting paid this much money per hour, or I'm getting paid this salary. Here's what the match is going to look like if I take advantage of the match. But are they taking into account that they might need to stay there for 3 years to get any of that match? And that's the question. And this is why we see numbers like we did looking here, that I don't think people are considering that entirely.
Yeah, I mean, based on and I'm reading from the paper, 1.8 million people, these are plan participants, forfeited compensation because they terminated employments, either voluntarily or involuntarily. That's a large amount of people, and you have to ask whether or not the education around vesting and your term of employment is necessary. I mean, do you think, and I come from the retirement industry, I mean, I'm fully transparent about that. Do you think that we should do a better job when we onboard people, when they enroll in plans, to explain to them, okay, it's not only your eligibility, it's not only that you're going to get a match, but you also need to stay at the company or the university for 3 years in order to get all the money that we're talking about here.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think, but I would take it even a step earlier. And I would say that we need more transparency even earlier than that. So that people who are looking for jobs know how to figure this out, whether they even want to apply, based on maybe a vesting schedule. So in the article, you can see where we compare some companies that don't use a vesting schedule, which means that the funds are the matching contributions or whatever contributions they make are immediately vested as soon as they're made in the plan for them. Where, and we compare companies that are similar in this article. So you see Amazon has a 3-year cliff vesting schedule. So someone has to stay there 3 years to get any of Amazon's match. But if you work for a Walmart warehouse instead, you get to you get immediate vesting in the matching contributions. So, people can't make the right choices if everything else is equal and they want to just look at the retirement plan aspect. They can't make the choices if they don't know until the time they're onboarding. So this is why I think we need to be ahead of it even earlier.
So in the job posting itself, I'm saying Indeed, which is a very popular job site. They're not a sponsor of the program, of course, or not of course, but they're not a sponsor of the program. But in that job posting, it would say 50% of the first 6% vested after 3 years, meaning, so you would want the transfer. And I can see that. I mean, I'd want to know that if I was hiring, if I was looking at a job.
Absolutely. And you want to know when you're eligible too. So, eligibility could be immediate or it could be not until you completed a year of service or have your 1,000 hours in, right? And so there are a few different things that I think are key with respect to 401k plans that should be in a job posting, should be on a company's website somewhere front facing so that people see it and don't have to dig for it later or, buried in documentation or whatever. But you're right to point out that as the summary plan descriptions that people get, they're too
Yeah.
voluminous. People don't look at them.
Yeah, but yeah, it's right there with the fund prospectus that we were talking about. I was joking about that, but those things are very long. A lot of them are electronically sent now, but I've been doing this for 30 years. I've never read a fund prospectus, Professor.
Yeah, I can understand that. And I think most people are probably in the same boat.
Right,
Yeah.
circular file. Let's talk about or the virtual circular file. We've got a couple minutes left, and I want to ask you about. You talked about the transient nature of the workforce now. So kids coming out of your school, not your school, but the Penn State, they're going to have multiple jobs. They're not just, when I was coming out, you had several jobs. Now these kids, I call them kids, they're younger than I am. So they're kids, they're going to have 8, 9, 10, 20 jobs, right? Do you think the vesting is going to go the way of the dodo? Is that something that eventually, if you want to attract somebody to your job, to a job posting, you're going to say, hey, I'm going to give you 50% of the first 6, and by the way, you're going to be vested at 100%. Do you think that could be a way to attract more workers?
I mean, I think that it should be, and I think it has been. I think during the pandemic, there are plenty of articles out there that talk about how some companies switched to immediate vesting in order to be more competitive to get workers when we had a bit of a worker shortage. So I do think that that's the case. But I think looking at it from the employer standpoint, a lot of, since we're on that vein now, considering that vesting schedules have always been one of those things that company said, well, the way to get our employees to be loyal to us and to stay longer is to use this vesting schedule because they'll be motivated or incentivized to stay with us until they at least get their full company match or whatever, right? And this article that we did it shows you that that's not necessarily the case. People aren't paying attention to that. They're leaving, or being fired for whatever reason, not taking into consideration the vesting schedule. And really what this goes down to is are people saving enough for retirement? And if we're going to rely on the employers to help along with that, then does it make sense for us to allow for forfeiting of this money when it's their compensation that they plan on getting when they first take the job? So
Yeah, I mean, sorry, go ahead, finish your thought, ma'am.
no, that's what I was just going to say. So I think that in order to, it takes money to make money. And so the more money you have in in your 401k plan, your salary deferrals, the company's match, or whatever contributions they're making combined, invest it, let it grow. That's the important part, right? But if we're going to take that money away from folks and only leave them with their salary deferrals, then people are not able to accumulate the retirement wealth that they need in order to retire.
Yeah, it's certainly thought provoking, and all those investment committees and fiduciary committee meetings where they're talking about the plan. You always want to reconsider the plan design. This may be an impetus to do that and think about the vesting that you are using. Professor Prince, we're going to have to leave it here. Great research. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Thank you. It was great chatting with you.
And don't forget to subscribe to our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse, for all the news in one place. Details are at our website. And we're back again tomorrow for another edition of BRN. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.